Good morning, everyone. My name is Malcolm Graham. I serve as chairman of the City of Charlotte Jobs and Economic Development Committee, and I am joined with the chairwoman of the Mecklenburg County Economic Development Committee, Commissioner Rodriguez McDowell. We'd like to welcome each and every one of you to a special joint meeting of the City and County Economic Development teams. First, I would like to take the opportunity first to have those at the table introduce themselves. I will make some opening remarks. Commissioner McDowell will do the same, and then we'll get right into the agenda, and we'll start with the clerk over there.
Lauren Livingston with Communications.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioner Lee Altman. Welcome to everybody here.
Good morning, I'm Laura Meyer, and I represent District 5 on the Mecklenburg County Board of Commissioners.
Good morning, I'm Susan Rodriguez McDowell, and I'm elected by the people of District 6 of Mecklenburg County.
And again, I'm Malcolm Graham, Charlotte City Council District 2.
Ed Driggs, Charlotte City Council District 7.
Good morning, Leslie Johnson, Deputy County Manager.
Good morning, Tracy Dodson, Assistant City Manager.
Hey, good morning. I'm Brendan Pierce, President of Commercial for Crescent Communities.
Morning, I'm Ford Perry, the Chief Operating Officer at BMOC Capital.
Thanks, everyone, for being here. Today, the Mecklenburg County Economic Development Committee and the City of Charlotte Jobs and Economic Development Committee are meeting together to consider support for Project Breakpoint. This project will be a catalyst for the River District as well as sports, another sports success story for our state, our county, and our city. We will hear an update of the status of the River District and how Project Breakpoint is a natural fit for the goals of the development, an overview from BMOC Capital about Project Breakpoint and the public partnership being requested, and then we'll end with committee discussion and next steps. I turn the meeting over to Commissioner Rodriguez McDowell for her opening comments.
Thank you so much. With both the county and the city in their respective budget processes and the expedited timeline needed for decisions of any public investment for Project Breakpoint, we thought the best course of action would be to hold this special meeting between our two economic development committees. Our goal today is to ask the questions of our presenters that are necessary to discuss our committee's support for Project Breakpoint, to proceed to presentations to the full County Commission and City Council and subsequent decisions of public partnership approval by both governing bodies. Thank you for taking the time to join us this discussion, and I will now turn over the discussion to ask Mecklenburg County Deputy County Manager, the lady in yellow, Leslie Johnson.
Well, there's two of us in
the
yellow,
ladies
right?
in yellow today.
The ladies in yellow, awesome. Well, again, good morning. I'm Leslie Johnson, Deputy County Manager. And Project Breakpoint has the opportunity to be a transformational project for our community. We thank Danny Morrison, who is the Executive Director of Capital Sports Foundation, for bringing this opportunity to us. We're excited about the opportunity to learn more about this project, facilitate any questions, discussions that may be had, and see if this is an opportunity for us in our community. I'll now turn it over to Tracy Dodson, who will provide an overview to you around the River District project and where we are today.
Great. Thank you, Leslie. Before I do that, I did want to ask, since Danny Morrison did bring the project, if he wanted to come up and just say a few words. He has to leave early, but Danny was the one that introduced this opportunity to us. So, Danny?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me just say this about the Charlotte Sports Foundation. We're thrilled with this opportunity. We think it's amazing. The mission of the Charlotte Sports Foundation is to bring high-profile sporting events to Charlotte that have economic impact and add to the quality of life. And this one does this and does extremely more, for not only does it bring high-profile event, but from a quality of life standpoint, adds something every single day, and for 365 days a year. As you all know, this weekend was a great example of Charlotte delivers on high-profile sporting events. The Wells Fargo out at Quail Hollow was fantastic, and then you add the President's Cup to that. It's just remarkable. The secret sauce in Charlotte, and I say this all the time, is the harmony that exists among city, county, CRVA, the venues, and I can go on and on, people working together to bring high-profile events to Charlotte. So when we first learned about this opportunity through the Charlotte Sports Foundation, we immediately took it to the city and county, and we're delighted that the work that's been done to get to this point. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today and for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. I want to acknowledge the presence of the chairman of the county commission who's online, as well as Councilmember Bakari, who's also online, and welcome to the meeting, Mayor Pro Tem Braxton Winston. Ms. Dotson.
Great. Thank you. I asked Crescent if we can go to the next slide, if I could take the opportunity to introduce River District back in this. While we were not a part of the site selection for the opportunity today, in previous life, I was very involved with the River District and spent a lot of time working on the entitlements and working hand in hand with Crescent on the vision for the River District. And so I just wanted to set the stage again that the River District is really intended to be about an experience. It's a place where you reunite with nature, and it's designed to be like any other part of our city. Right now, you go out there and there's, other than the construction, there's not a lot there. And it's great that we had the opportunity to design the city that is really the soul of nature and nestled in nature. And it will be that part of every piece of it as it comes to life over the next many years. We think this opportunity is a great kickstart to that, but it also embraces that opportunity that you'll hear more about what River District is from Brendan. We go to the next slide. One of the things, and why I asked to start this, is that when we did the entitlements and we did the early visioning, this was contemplated as a long-term public-private partnership. We designed River District and thought about schools, open space, parks, fire stations, police stations, all the infrastructure that was going to be needed over time to build out this community. And so it's interesting that we're back talking about this site and talking about the public-private partnership opportunities, because it does fit into that longer vision of what River District can become and all of the pieces that we've anticipated through the early design work of it. And so with that, I will turn it over to Brendan to give you more on kind of where River District is today.
Thank you, Tracy. That was a great start, an introduction to the River District. If you want to go to the next slide, please. Well, as I said, my name is Brendan Pierce. I am president of commercial for Crescent Communities, and we are very excited to talk to you all today about not just the River District, but this opportunity. So my goal here today in my brief time is to talk a little bit about what River District is, where we are today, and where we're going to go, and how does this opportunity fit in. So I've said before, we've been working on the River District for over 7 years. I think we've had 150 plus people touch this project over the 7 years. There have been no two groups that have been more important to the River District than the City of Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. As Tracy said, this has been a public-private partnership, and it's going to be an incredibly successful one because of our work together over these 7 years. And you know, we've been talking about this for a very, very long time, and the reality of the River District is here today, and that's exciting for us to talk about at Crescent Communities. So what is the River District? The soul of the city and the heart of nature. You know, we take that very seriously. I would tell you there is no other piece of land that is this large, this close to a major airport in the United States that is controlled by one developer. And that one developer is Crescent Communities. That is an exciting opportunity for us. As you can imagine, it's also a daunting opportunity for us as well, right? We have got to get this right, and we are focused on getting this right, this entire development. If it's not, you can come to my house in 10 years and personally blame me, because this is what we are focusing on. It's one of the most exciting projects we have in our portfolio across the United States. I mean, we've been in Charlotte, headquartered for 60 years. So this is extremely important to us. So what is the River District? It's 1,400 acres that run from 485 to the Catawba River. It's going to have over 4,600 homes, retail space, commercial space, hotel rooms. So the vertical, we're basically creating a city out of whole cloth, which is great. But what is it also? What's the important part? What is going to separate the River District from any other development? It's the other things we're thinking about. It's 40% open space, 550 acres of open space. It's 30 parks. It's a 2-acre working farm that we're going to have, which I'll talk about in a little bit, which is very cool. Over 30 miles of mountain biking and walking trails and 2.7 miles of riverfront, all within a stone's throw of the airport. And it's just an exciting, incredible development, not just for the west side, but for the city of Charlotte. Next slide, please. As I said, we have got to get this right, and we think about things all the time on how is this going to be a development for the next 100 years? How is it going to have diversity? How is it going to have sustainability? And when we think about affordable housing, for example, when we've got an objective to have 8% affordable housing, we're already in our first phase at 14%. When we think about minority women and small businesses, we have a requirement of 10%. We're already at 12% in first phase. And I will tell you, this isn't just for the River District. We think about this on every single project that Crescent does throughout the United States. We track these metrics internally, and it's very, very important to us. So we look at the River District as an extension of what Crescent does on a day-to-day basis throughout the United States. And the exciting thing about when everything is said and done with the River District, $2.7 billion of new tax base for the city and county, over $1 billion of revenue over the next 30 years of tax revenue for the city and the county. So as you can start to understand the scope and scale of this project, it's great for all of us here in this room, all of us in the city and county, and excited to talk to you about the next phases. So next slide, please. As I said before, you can see some of the things that we think about with all of the outdoor space. Every home will be within a block of a connected trail or park. I'm not sure there's many places that have 1,400 acres that can say that. We'll have the 30 parks, the water access, the only city public access to the Catawba River, by the way. So that's a great opportunity. That Catawba River's been sitting there for generations, and nobody's really been able to take advantage of it and enjoy it. And the River District will allow that to happen. Next slide, please. So this is just a slide to show you, we think about the experience, as Tracy talked about, the experience of the River District, not just the vertical, but the horizontal, the experience when people move there, and when people come there to shop or to eat or to stay in hotels or to come visit on the weekends. And that experience, as you'll hear later about this opportunity, is only going to get ramped up significantly. Next slide. As I said before, we've had a ton of people that worked on this, and it truly has taken a village. And you can see, from the city of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, CMS, the Catawba Land Conservancy, there's so many others that we have worked with. So this isn't just Crescent working in a vacuum. This is working with all of our constituents and everyone that has a say on this. And you know what? It's going to make it a better development and one that we're excited about. Next slide. As I said, we have got to get this right, and we want to make it a unique development. And so stewardship of the land is incredibly important to us as we think about not just on phase one. This is going to be an 18-phase project, by the way, over a 10 to 15-year period. And we're going to continue that stewardship along those 18 phases, regardless of what we're building. Next slide. So what I said is I wanted to talk about what it is, where we are today. Why this project, why it's taken so long. We really needed to get West Boulevard built from 485 over to Dixie River Road. That is under construction right now, and that is that line in orange. That allows the River District to all of a sudden become alive. And our first phase is Westro, it will be our village at River District. It's going to have, as I said, affordable units that is in the very first phase at 14%. And we'll have residential. We need some bodies out there to get the River District started. But it's not just that. I mean, we're going to have this incredible 2-acre working farm with an orchard that surrounds it. You can imagine living in the River District and then walking over the farm on a weekend and doing a farmer's market. 34,000 square feet of office over retail. We're also going to have an event center and a learning center. So this really becomes the heartbeat of the River District in Phase 1. And that is under construction right now. I'll get into where the timing is at the very end. Next slide. You can see this is West Road. So this is, it is really truly a village feel. And you can see on the left side of that screen, the working farm, and it really becomes the centerpiece for the River District. And as it says, we are currently under horizontal. We're doing all the land development for Phase 1 right now. And we start going vertical by the first quarter of next year, and then hopefully start delivering residential units by the end of next year. So there will be people living at the River District by 2025, and it will be a live and active development. Next slide, please. Just a visual of what River District is. It's not, we're being very thoughtful about the design, about the character, and this is going to be established. This establishes the River District look and feel that we'll take throughout those 18 phases over the next decade. Next slide. So, in conclusion, because we want to get to the good stuff right now, just to show you the infrastructure that is currently underway, and that will be the West Boulevard. You'll be able to drive your car on it in the summer of next year. And then we'll have water sewer that comes up to Westro, and then, as I said, we start going vertical with all of the work at Westro. So hopefully this gives you an understanding of what the River District is. It's our intent is to have the best development to live, work, and play southeast. And our hope is after you hear this next presentation, we will have one of the most exciting developments in the United States, full stop. So with that being said, let's get on to the good stuff, and thank you for the time today.
With that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the board. As I said, this is a interesting opportunity where we can combine the vision of River District into this unique opportunity, and think that they do match up very well together. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Ford Perry.
Good morning. Thank you, Tracy, for the introduction. Next slide, I believe. Yeah, thank you. So good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here to talk about Project Breakpoint. As I said, my name is Ford Perry. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at BMOC, which is a diversified family office based in Charleston, South Carolina, that was founded by Ben and Kelly Navarro. I'm also joined by my colleague, Todd Martin, and in the seats over here, Todd is our head of tennis. He's former CEO of the International Tennis Hall of Fame, and more interestingly, he was a former top 5 player in tennis, so certainly our expert in the tennis world with us today. This morning I want to talk about the potential to relocate an international tennis tournament to Charlotte and what that can mean for the city, the county, and the state. 9 months ago, we invested several $100 million to acquire the rights to one of the premier tennis tournaments in the world. And since that time, we've been evaluating the best long-term home for the tournament. Before we invest several $100 million more in constructing a facility to host a substantial expansion of the tournament in 2025. I'm a native North Carolinian. I grew up in Winston-Salem. I lived in Charlotte for 23 years before I moved to Charleston 3.5 years ago. In fact, 20 years ago today, I was married in Charlotte. So quick shout out to my wife for letting me celebrate with you all today.
And you're out of town, right? Okay.
Better hurry home.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll pay for it. Naturally, given my connection with the city and my familiarity with the growth and the opportunity here, Charlotte has always been top of our list with respect to what the opportunity could be for this tournament. However, despite my biases, we are running a process that is evaluating a variety of different cities, including Cincinnati, Ohio, where the tournament is located today. So our goal today is really to educate the public and the leaders in the city and the county on really three important elements of this tournament. Next slide, please. One, the significance of this world-class tournament, which is considered one of the most prestigious in tennis. Two, the benefit a $400 million tennis and entertainment campus will have transforming the west side of Charlotte and the River District into a regional destination for sports and music. And three, the direct impact that this investment in the campus will have on the local community. And if I can take a minute just to sort of briefly comment on that last piece, which is investing in the community, because it's super important to our organization. It's core to our corporate ethos. It's something we have done extensively in Charleston and across South Carolina. And while the sports side of this project is sexy and exciting and will be fun to talk about, you know, we really expect to be much more than a tennis partner to the city and the county and the state. You know, it's difficult to say exactly how that may play out in the future. We've had lots of conversations. We have lots of ideas. But we hope we'll have the opportunity to emulate our partnerships that we've created in South Carolina with the city of Charleston, with the state, with the Charleston County School District, with the Medical University of South Carolina, and we hope to find similar partners in Charlotte. We're proud of those partnerships we have, the track record we have with those organizations, whether it's the 4, soon to be 5, Title I schools that we operate in South Carolina for more than 2,000 students, or the nearly 300 need-based scholarships that we'll award in July worth more than $12 million, or the efforts we're making with Medical University of South Carolina to combat the mental health epidemic by creating more innovative treatment protocols. Each of those projects is often complicated, but we'll explore ways to bring those ideas here as well. But at a minimum, we know that this project will be hugely impactful to hundreds of youth in this community by introducing them to tennis. And we believe tennis provides an incredibly affordable and accessible conduit to really teaching critical life skills. So with that, some background, I'm going to pivot and talk more specifically about Project Breakpoint and the opportunity for Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. Next slide, please. So about 9 months ago, we acquired the Western and Southern Open, which is currently based in Cincinnati. We acquired it because it's one of the 9 most prestigious trophies in all of tennis. And we acquired it because it had a ton of untapped potential. It was owned by the USTA. It was underdeveloped and underinvested by them because their priority was the US Open, which came just a few weeks later. But to us, that provides a ton of opportunity because this tournament has really one of the premier dates on the calendar. Because it precedes the US Open, it guarantees that annually all of the top players in the world will play in this tournament. They want to play leading up to that event. Last year, we had 10 of the top 10 women, 9 of the top 10 men. Only one left out was because of COVID vaccinations. And when you have that kind of field, you attract fans from all over. We have ticket buyers from all 50 states and from 39 countries. We have viewership all over the world, more than 60 million viewers of the tournament. And as popular as tennis is in the US, its popularity internationally is as great or if not greater. And that's every point within the world. Across Asia, Eastern Western Europe, South America, et cetera. It's the 4th most popular sport in the world by number of fans, more than 1.5 billion viewers annually. Interestingly, the number 2 most wagered sport. Next slide, please. So to set the stage a little bit, because not everybody is familiar with the tennis landscape and why I say this is one of the most prestigious tournaments in the world. Most people are generally familiar with the 4 Grand Slams, the Wimbledon, the French Open, the US Open, and the Australian Open. Just below that within the tennis world are what are called Master 1000 events. There are 5 of those that are combined men's and women's events, so men and women play the same week. The Western and Southern Open is one of those. The other the other 4 being Miami, Rome, Madrid, and Indian Wells, which is outside of Los Angeles. And then there's 4 men's-only events and a couple of women's-only events, and they're in incredible cities like Montreal and Toronto, Monte Carlo, Paris, Shanghai, Doha, Dubai, et cetera. So really a prestigious group of tournaments. We'll talk a little bit more about why that's important here on the next slide, please. So as important as the event has been historically and as significant as it's been, it's only growing in its scale and importance. What I mean by that is the governing bodies within tennis, the ATP and the WTA, have determined that they want to emphasize these higher level tournaments and begin to de-emphasize the lower level tournaments. And the way they're achieving that is extending and increasing the size of this tournament and all the other 1,000 level events. So the tournament today is a week long. It will extend to 2 weeks in 2025. It'll also go from a 56 player draw to a 96 player draw. That has huge implications. You go from essentially 5 days of midweek competition and a championship weekend to 12 days of competition plus a championship weekend. So the opportunity to add that middle weekend where all of your top seeds are playing, where every court is full, followed by this pinnacle of a championship weekend is a unique change. And that's already been done at some other sites around the world. We'll speak to a couple of those now. Next slide. So Indian Wells and Miami are 2-week events. They are what we look to emulate and what we believe is possible with this tournament. When you look at both the attendance and the economic impact of those tournaments, Miami has close to 400,000 attendees, Indian Wells, 500,000 attendees, and their stated public economic impact is 390 and 565 million. We believe we'll start to approach those levels. We expect to have 350,000 attendees at this event over the 2-week period. And we recently completed an economic impact study that Dr. Tom Regan completed for us that indicates the tournament alone will have an economic impact approaching $275 million. As a point of reference, if you look at events this community is very familiar with, we just completed the Wells Fargo Championship this past weekend. An incredible event, but really just 4 days of competition versus 14 days of competition. That event attracts about 115,000 fans, 77 million of economic impact, and then you have these special events that Charlotte has had in the golf world, the President's Cup and the PGA, which have materially greater impact, both in terms of the fans attending and the economic impact. But this event, this tennis event, will be significantly greater than each of those on an annual basis. And so this becomes a fabric of the community in a way that is hard to replicate within the sports world. As popular as the Panthers and the Hornets are and these golf tournaments are, the international exposure and external fan draw is hard to really replicate in the sports world. Next slide. I talked about it a minute ago, but it's worth highlighting again. The peer group of cities that host these 1,000-level events is truly prestigious. The opportunity to add Charlotte to this group is a unique opportunity, both from a marketing and branding standpoint and exposure around the world. Los Angeles, Miami, Rome, Madrid, Paris, Monte Carlo, Montreal, Toronto, and Shanghai really speaks to the quality of this tournament and the opportunity for Charlotte and the region. Next slide. Each of those tournaments has a unique feel if you have an opportunity to visit those campuses. We've spent time thinking hard about what the feel and look of this campus might be. You heard Brendan speak about the River District being in the heart of nature. That's something that we really want to be able to maintain within this campus. Unfortunately, the campus we inherited in Cincinnati, while it hosts an incredible event, was built in the early 80s. It is a very traditional stadium and a parking lot and not a lot of character, something we either have to fix there or something we are excited about creating here. This idea of maintaining a very park-like experience with a lot of green space, wetlands that run through the property, maintaining that look and feel. What you'll see on this is also a snapshot of the scale of the facilities that we need for this campus. There's 4 stadiums that anchor the property, sort of on each of the corners, ranging in size from approximately 14,000 seats down to 2,000 seats. Plus, we'll have an additional 5 match courts, which are sort of scattered through the center of the campus. And then on the far end, sort of the northern side of this photo, are the practice facilities, both indoor and outdoor, that we require for the tournament. So this campus will have approximately 40 courts, hard clay indoor, in addition to the stadiums and all of the infrastructure that's required. Next slide. But what we talk about with this campus is truly creating something that's embedded within the community broadly and as a part of the River District. So we're starting to think about elements like an amphitheater, which is on the northern end of this photo. The opportunity for the community, not necessarily use this as part of the tournament, but to be able to use this on all the other days of the year. Whether you're hosting food truck events, whether you're hosting small concerts for the community, being able to plug in and use this campus, whether you're a tennis player or not, is important to us. You'll also see that we've started to think about how we're going to integrate the walking trails, and those would tie into the broader River District, how we think about greenways that tie into the wetlands within the campus, and how we embed these stadiums within the existing tree canopy so that we're not disrupting sort of the environmental and natural feel of this existing property. Next slide. Beyond the primary tournament itself, which is the Masters 1000 event, this will be a hub of racket sports and tennis that we expect to draw and be really a draw across the region. So sports tourism is critical to the economy here. It has been historically. We think we will add to that in a material way. We operate many of these existing events at our campus in Charleston. I'll speak more about that in a minute, but in essence, we think there's 4 or 5 categories to attract sports tourism. First is lower level professional tournaments. We host a number of those in Charleston today. The ATP and WTA, as you move down below the 1,000 level, have hundreds of tournaments around the world, and we would look to host those. Collegiate championships, whether it's conference championships, school-based championships, NCAA championships. The NCAA does not have a very well-defined home for tennis, and the way we would build this would align perfectly with what the facilities they need. We operate an academy in Charleston called LTP Academy. It's for high-performance youth tennis. That would be established here as well. And it would also attract a lot of the tournaments that we host in Charleston, amateur tournaments for juniors. And then we'll have opportunities to bid on international championships as well, the Davis Cup, the Billie Jean King Cup, and then the growth of pickleball, which everyone's intimately familiar with, will provide all kinds of sports tourism opportunities. Next slide. Beyond the professional side of this, the sports tourism side of it, I hinted at in the photos, this campus needs to be part of the broader community. We want to build this so that this is accessible to the entire community. This isn't reserved for professional players, but rather it's used as a catalyst to really be an amenity and an asset to local daily players, as well as an opportunity to really introduce tennis to a broader part of the community. We're going to do that in a variety of ways. Our facility in Charleston today is a public facility. We operate it with the Charleston County Park System. Anyone can come play at very affordable rates at $10 an hour. We would expect to emulate that here. In addition to that, we would expect to provide thousands of free hours of affordable access to the courts for sort of need-based play, as well as introducing kids to the sport. We also host days in which children in schools can access our tournament for free. We would expect to do the same things here. This image is of several girls from our Meeting Street Academy in Charleston at our event that finished in April, and we bring all of our schools and local schools out. We'd also want to assign a director of community programming so that we can align with schools and recreational centers to really use tennis as this catalyst for teaching crucial life skills. And then similarly, as we identify really talented individuals offering scholarships into our LTP Academy, which most of those ultimately go on to play in college. And then I commented on the public park aspect of this. We want a place where people are coming regardless of whether they're coming to play tennis. Next slide. So we've talked about all the tennis aspects of this, the daily play. We haven't talked about the entertainment side of it. We host at our venue in Charleston last year 22 concerts. These tennis venues provide really incredible, a really incredible stadium to host music in addition to tennis. We would expect to host 25 concerts during the summer concert season, as well as other festivals and corporate events, all of that leading to more than 200 days of events on campus, in addition to 365 days a year of local play. All that translates, we believe, to more than 300 million of economic impact, 650,000 visitors to the campus over a year, and a majority of those coming from out of town. Next slide. I've hinted to it, but I'll speak to it more directly. We're highly confident in our ability to execute on this. We have a track record of doing it in Charleston. We have an incredible team in Cincinnati that's been operating this tournament for years. This image shows you what we accomplished in Charleston recently. We took the stadium in the lower left corner, which was owned by the city. It was an aging structure, and we really transformed it into a state-of-the-art venue for concerts and tennis. Last year, our tennis tournament, which is the Credit One Charleston Open, was awarded the WTA 500 Tournament of the Year, it was international recognition that is awarded by the players for the overall excellence of the event. And last year, the venue was the number 10 ranked amphitheater worldwide based on the performance of the concert series. So we're highly confident we'll be able to execute on this. We have learned a tremendous amount in terms of how to build these structures, how to execute events, and we believe in our ability to do it here as well. Next slide. This gives you a glimpse into what the stadium itself would look like, the main center court. As I mentioned, we've taken a lot of lessons from Charleston to be able to apply here as well, but the opportunity, rather than renovating a stadium, to go from the ground up, which affords us a ton of flexibility to fix all the things we'd love to fix. But we think you start to get a sense here, and on the next slide, please, what the opportunity for this as a centerpiece on the campus will be for the community broadly. As I mentioned, tennis stadiums really, given their intimacy and how close the stands are to the court, provide a venue that the feedback we got last year from all of the artists playing in these venues in our stadium is that it's an extraordinary experience, both for fans and artists alike. So we're excited about it. Next slide. And then one more look at what the potential for really capitalizing on the topography and sort of the park-like element of the campus. You can see here in the background, Stadium 1 and Stadium 2. But this idea of being able to use this topography to create unique stadium experiences on some of the smaller courts. So having terraced, sort of garden-like courts as opposed to bleachered stadiums. And being able to be creative with how we create green walls around those spaces and unique viewing experiences. Next slide. Brendan did an amazing job talking about the River District. As we started this project 6 or 7 months ago and started to think about where alternative sites could be, we did a deep dive into Charlotte and thinking about each location. We looked at 5 or 6 opportunities before ultimately settling on the River District. We also, in particular, we evaluated the east side of Charlotte and in East Lynn Mall in particular. Obviously, there's a project moving forward there. Joel Turner and Calvin are here today. I've known Joel for a long time. We've been talking about this project since we started to talk about Charlotte. What they're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to accomplish, share very similar visions, which is about bringing high-quality tennis, both from a professional standpoint as well as introducing it to a broader spectrum of the community. So we think highly of what they're trying to do and the project. We looked at trying to build this on the east side. Frankly, it just wasn't practical. As you'll see from the renderings we provided, our campus is more than 50 acres, and we have more than double that need for parking. And so the idea of putting 10,000 cars on the east side of Charlotte really became a challenge. But that ultimately led us to settling on the River District. And we're excited about what that opportunity provides for us. First and foremost is an abundant amount of space, both for the campus as well as for parking. The unique proximity to the airport is extraordinary. For the tournament and ease of access, if you travel around to these tournaments around the rest of the world, that is not common. You're typically traveling quite far to these tournament venues. And furthermore, the opportunity to be just 15 minutes from uptown Charlotte to access the amenities that are provided both in terms of hotels and restaurants and really embedding people within the community was really attractive to us, not to mention ease of entry and exit from the campus to major roadways. So the look, the feel, the natural element of the River District, our opportunity to be both an anchor tenant and a catalyst to the development within that community is really exciting, and we can't wait to be in partnership if there's an opportunity to move forward here. Next slide. And so we think about what the framework for successful partnership is. We expect this project to cost in excess of $400 million. We are bringing to the table a lot to contribute to that. At a minimum, 2/3 of the financing for the project, including any cost overruns for the project. We expect to oversee not only the design, construction, and management of the facility, but also the day-to-day operations once it's established. We also anticipate, if we're successful, providing a long-term commitment to the city. And then maybe most importantly, we're bringing, or just as importantly, we're contributing a sanction, which is valued at more than $300 million. From a public perspective, we've asked for several things: for support for 1/3 of the project cost with a cap, as well as support in developing the infrastructure and resources to make this possible. We have an aggressive time frame. We would like this tournament to operate here by August of 2026 if we're ultimately successful. And so developing the infrastructure and the roads and the permitting and all of the other elements are important for us from a partnership perspective. So we're thrilled to talk about this today. We've done a lot of work to date in partnership with the city and the county to think through this project, as well as with the team at Crescent. We think this could be an extraordinary opportunity for the city and the county, and really an extraordinary opportunity for the tennis community as well, domestically and internationally. Not many of these facilities are built very often, and there hasn't been one in more than 10 years. And so it will really be a pinnacle for the sport. So next slide. I appreciate this provides you a quick overview of the campus and the relative scale, but really appreciate the time today to have an opportunity to talk about this, and look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Perry, for the project overview, and I turn the meeting over to Tracy Dotson. But before, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our county manager, Dina Denario, and the city attorney, Patrick Baker. Ms. Dotson.
Thank you, Councilmember Graham. If we can go to the next slide. So as Ford said, this is a competitive process, which is why we bring this to you at this time. As you start the discussion, we wanted to outline perhaps the benefit or the lens that we might analyze this opportunity through for each entity. Potential partners on the public investment include the city and the county, as well as the state. From the city's perspective, we were going to look at this perhaps through tourism. What is going to be generated from this opportunity? We also are looking at it from the infrastructure that was identified by the city more than 7 years ago, that was desired out in this part of our community. And so those are the two angles that we will look at it. Leslie, do you want to speak from the county's perspective?
Sure. Tourism and economic impact is equally important for the county, but notwithstanding those viewpoints, it's also on our radar with regards to the community impact, corporate stewardship. What's the return on investment for actually having public use of the facility, and what does that look like on a day-to-day basis, in addition to the tournaments? We're also looking at it from the connectivity to complement to our existing parks, planned park that's part of the River District, as well as connectivity to trails, because there's trails that are planned as well as our greenway access. So those are the other things. And the last thing that's not least, but Ford mentioned this, it is the investment in youth and the programming that goes and complements it as well. So we will also be entertaining things like camps, clinics, public access at affordable rates, and the like.
I will close on this slide by also just mentioning from the state's perspective, this has been introduced in Raleigh. Not to put any words in their mouth, but they have historically, when they've decided to partner on projects, looked at things like infrastructure and site readiness. So we would anticipate that if they move the discussion forward in Raleigh, this might be the lens in which they look at how they partner on this. If we can go to the next slide. As we start the discussion, this is like how we would analyze any project moving forward. There will be a lot more touch points and a lot more discussion, as well as thinking through the community engagement and outreach. As Ford mentioned, we do have more discussion around the permitting and alignment and efficiencies. Can we make the timelines? And so that's something that staff will take on, as well as the larger discussion about parking needs in and around this site. And then, again, more coordination with the Crescent team around infrastructure that is needed in the River District. Anything to add on this slide?
The other additional compliments that Tracy probably alluded to is you can see that we anticipate that this isn't the one and only conversation on this topic. There will be some other ones. This is presenting a big conceptual schematic opportunity for us that we think that will be valuable for our community. And then the rest is the additional conversations that we would need to have with Ford and the team to really ensure that we get the public benefit for our community.
And with that, we'll turn it back over to the city and the county.
Thank you, Tracy and Leslie, for those overview of next steps. I open the floor up for questions, comments from both our friends from the county as well as my colleagues from the city. Floor is open. Let me start with Commissioner Altman, and then we'll pivot to Councilmember Drakes.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, it's a very exciting project and has tremendous potential for our community. For the residents who are following this, I want to be sure that it's clear that whenever we talk about economic development proposals, the investment of public dollars for a project like this, that we always, we never even begin a conversation or consider it at all if we aren't, if the data doesn't show that the money that it's going to bring in. In fact, we have complicated processes to ensure that the projection over a 5 and 10 and 15 and 20-year process demonstrate that the amount of revenue and benefit to the community, it far exceeds the public investment. And one reason why that matters, obviously we always want to ensure that it's a great return on investment for the public. But especially in this time of year when we're discussing our budgets and how we meet the needs of the community, every dollar that we're able to bring in to, in the form of revenue that comes from corporations is less money that we have to ask from individuals, residents. So it really helps our ability to fund all of our critical services when we are able to attract world-class investments that deliver a great amenity and help fund all of the infrastructure that we need to deliver to our residents. So that's sort of, just step one. If step one is met and therefore we get the presentation, the next thing that I turn to, that we all turn to, is the proposal something? Is the entity going to be a good corporate partner? Are they going to help bring benefits along with the project? And so that's when we start to look at their MWSB commitments. I and the county are very focused, as I know the city is, on workforce development investments and so forth. And so, that's what I'm really going to be looking for as we go forward in the process. You talked about, you've had MEC Park and Rec involvement. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what that is. I saw the CMS logo on this. I would love to hear about that. And then if I could hear from staff, what is the process to ensure that the representations and the promises that are being discussed and that we're hearing actually do get delivered? I've heard it discussed as a community benefits agreement. I don't know the extent to which that has really been formalized with previous economic development processes, but I would like to know what is the ability to really document the benefits to the community that are being discussed today, so that we can be sure about them being delivered down the road. And thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Altman. Councilmember Drakes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, actually, I was hoping I could get the answers to those questions.
Yeah, with regards to CMS, we've reserved land for CMS to build a middle school and high school. At the end, ultimately, it's CMS. We've been working hand in glove with them, and it's very important to us that a new school is built out there. They've been looking at several opportunities, especially along the STEM lines, which would be fantastic. But it's a work in progress, as you know. But we expect hopefully to have a school out there at some point in the future.
And what about Park and Rec? You said you had had conversations with Mecklenburg Park and Rec.
We've been saying for years. We've been talking with Parks and Rec about how we're going to integrate parks into the River District. We have a requirement. There's 2 10-acre parks that we've got to dedicate to Parks and Rec, and that's just 2 of our 30 that we're going to, and the rest are privately built. And I'm sure that we'll figure out as we go through. As we said, this is a 10-year project over 18 phases, and our hope is to have Parks and Rec involved along the way. Critically important, especially with greenways as well.
And I guess actually these first 2 questions were really more geared towards the River District and not so much the economic development proposal for today. So I'll follow up with those in greater depth. But in terms of the promises regarding thousands of free hours and investments in our youth, I do still have that question about that as regards BMOC.
Commissioner Altman, I'll jump in if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
So with regards with the River District, I know that it's not focused today, but as it has been noted, there is part of the agreement that we have for the River District. The River District has identified a parcel or parcels of land that roughly acres, about 10 acres or roughly, where it will be a public park that's part of the complement of there. And in addition to that, there's trails and access ways that are also going to be there. There will also another subset of parks that will be part of the River District, but they will not be managed by Mecklenburg County. They will be operated either by Crescent and or the associated HOAs. But there will be a public park that's part of the agreement that we have there. With regards to this project, and as well as other projects that we may have that are partnership projects, there's an agreement that outlines all of the specifics as negotiated that are the terms for that assurance. In addition, as part of our own internal protocol, we have a team of individuals that, what I'm going to say, monitors, depending on what those logistics are, and/or there are, in a couple of projects, we actually have a team of people that we regularly meet with on a regular basis just to make sure that we have a pulse check in play. The third thing that I would compliment on is that you already referenced to from the economic piece. You're aware that on the county side, we do economic modeling through our REMI tool to ensure that that investment that we're making yields the return over the short and long term for our community.
Thank you.
Floor is yours, Councilmember Drake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Perry, thank you for a very concise and informative presentation. I think that gives us a good lay of the land, and also Mr. Pierce. I think clearly what we have here is a big opportunity and a big price tag. And so our challenge is going to be to assess the kind of relationship between those. And when we do that, we have to kind of dig down a bit and start thinking about the components of public funding that might be involved here. So if we have, for example, hospitality and tourism funds, that's kind of a business decision that that industry makes about whether or not they want to incur that cost in order to realize the tourism benefits that come from it. So I think we would be guided to a certain extent by that. And the public needs to understand that's a whole different economy from the taxes that you normally think of. I'm a taxpayer, so I pay property tax and I pay sales tax, and that money goes into our general fund, which is police, fire, and all those activities, and some investments like this one. The hospitality accounts are, again, people from out of town, people staying in hotels and eating at restaurants, and that's a whole economy unto itself. It represents about 1/7 of the entire Mecklenburg economy. So we'll be looking at, I will be looking certainly at this breakdown between the hospitality and the other sources, the more taxpayer-driven sources. And there we have different tools. So we have our CIP money, our capital spending accounts that we can use, for example, for infrastructure investment, a lot of which we would make anyway because it's beneficial to the area. Like the city and the government typically invest in infrastructure to promote development. There were hundreds of millions of dollars invested in South Charlotte before Valentine came to be. We have tax incentive grants where we might, for example, have the developer pay for infrastructure and then recover that cost through a tax break. We have business incentive grants, which are also tax breaks. So the tools that we use are going to define what the actual cost to your typical taxpayer is versus the amount borne by the hospitality industry. And Dr. Johnson, I appreciate your acknowledgement of the many of the public benefits that we need to take into account. So we're going to perform a kind of social rate of return calculation, recognizing that there are a lot of public benefits to people who aren't paying anything, possibly, benefits to people that we want to provide amenities to and to support. And that will guide, I think, our overall assessment in the end. What I see here, though, is something very attractive, and therefore I'm going to be looking to see if we can make these pieces fit and come back to the public with a good explanation as to why we think this is something that, with which we ought to proceed. The appeal of, for example, that media exposure, I mean, Charlotte is trying to establish itself as a world city. And so you take an event like this, and that's a step in that direction. That's an important step because of the international audience there is for tennis. And that is something that I find very interesting. And finally, Mr. Perry, I wanted to mention that I would really welcome the opportunity to partner with Mr. Navarro. In my conversation with him and seeing him talk about these things, his commitment to the community was evident to me, his engagement with schools and on housing and so on. He would be, I think, a valuable citizen for us to have here in Charlotte, and that is something that I would appreciate. So we're going to look very critically at this for sure. I have a background in finance, and I'm trying to convey to you that I'm going to be very analytical about it and make sure that we do get the right kind of value in each dimension of the possible funding sources, because $130 million is a lot of money. But the public just needs to understand that we do have a process for determining that the value is there and that this is justified and that the incidence of the cost, so people who will bear the cost will also see the benefits. So this is going to be, I think, a time-compressed process, and I would be interested if you could comment a little more on what you need from us in order for us to meet your schedule.
Yeah, so you're right. We are on a tight time frame because we have a deadline to be able to expand this tournament by 2025. So our expectation is to make a decision about the permanent long-term home in the tournament later this summer. And so given all the other elements that need to come together for that, we need to have clarity with regard to what the city, county, and state can contribute, and then what the conditionality is for us to be partners in that pretty quickly.
So I have a lot of questions that I'm not going to try and address right here concerning the transaction structure, ownership, commitments, more of the contract details. And I think we will be pressed. I mean, Ms. Dodson and Dr. Johnson will be pressed to get through all of that and then come back to us with all the answers we need. But I think the motivation is there to try to meet your schedule, and the opportunity is certainly very exciting. It deserves urgent attention from us. Thank you.
Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, thank you for the presentation, and I want to say about the River District in general, really you had me at 550 acres of green space. That is, you're talking the county's language. And so how you are respecting the environment with this development is very encouraging to me, and I know to the county, and to the tennis development. I'm looking forward to hearing what you're doing in Charleston with your charitable contributions, how that translates here, because I know I had the great opportunity of visiting your stadium and seeing it in action, and it was packed on a weekday. And so I think it's a win-win for the county and the city to invest in this. I look forward to this, to the four of us hashing this out and hearing the pros and cons on the county side when it comes to the investment. But from what I saw in Charleston, it's very impressive. And there's a whole lot more green space here than you have in Charleston and in Cincinnati, I'm just saying, on Cleveland. Cincinnati. But I think it's a win-win, and I am, being very conservative and wanting to hear more how this is going to happen in such an ambitious timeline. And I hope to see good things. I do have a question about your Charleston Stadium. Was that a public-private partnership with the renovations, or did BBOC pay for that whole thing?
We paid for the renovations.
And the land is owned by the county parks?
That's correct.
Okay. So the difference here is that it would be a public partnership here, but the county would run what?
So I think those are all details that we need to work through as part of the next phase of this process.
Okay.
I think it's our expectation that we would take on, just as we do in Charleston, while the city owns the facility, we operate it and manage it for them. And so that's a model we know well that works really well. And so taking that burden off and bringing the level of professionalism to that execution is what we would hope to do in a similar situation here.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to hearing more and working out with the committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Meyer. I'll yield myself some time. It's a generational opportunity for our city, our county, and our state to really kind of cement Charlotte's reputation as a sports town, but more importantly, to grow the city's economy and our travel and tourism industry. Hotels, small business owners, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, bartenders, waiters, waitress, all those who kind of make this economy work and grow will benefit significantly one thing about the economic impact, it only talked about the impact for the tournament itself. It didn't list all the impact for the other events. So we're talking somewhere between $275 to $400 million a year of economic impact when you take into consideration the concerts and the tournaments and the amateur tournaments. So it's a huge event for our community. Couple of notes. I just wanted to articulate to the community that the city has the ability to do multiple things at a time. We could work to help with the renovation of the Spectrum Center in Uptown Charlotte. We could build a new transit station and a temporary parking lot. We can talk with our NFL partners about the NFL draft being in the city. We can talk about future plans for the stadium itself. We can talk about what we need to do to enhance economic development at Eastland Yards, and we can talk about the River District. We have the capacity, the staff, and the resources to do it. So it's not either or in reference to our relationship with Eastland Yards. There is a process in place. One of the proposals just happens to be tennis. They have to compete with others, which is a amphitheater, soccer fields, and a gaming center, as well as a public option. So there's no certainty what's going to happen at Eastland Yards. The certainty from the city's perspective is that we will make an investment in something that makes sense. So it's not an either or for this project or that project. We have the ability to do all of it. A couple of notes also. I love the atmosphere of the live, work, and play of the River District. The embedding the facilities in the open space over there around the trees is exciting. A personal note, I'm from Charleston, South Carolina, born and raised. I came to Charlotte on a tennis scholarship at Johnson C. Smith, and I know Mr. Navarro and the work he has done in the Charleston community. This is not the first time that the city has been communicating with BMAR Capital. We took 2 teams down to Charleston, and Danny Morrison with the Sports Commission, Tom Murray with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, Keith Cockrell with the Alliance, the city manager, Commissioner Jarrell, Tracy Dodson. We got to see the facilities. We got to visit the Title I schools. We talked to individuals that are associated with their mental health services. We went back 2 weeks later with a different group, the Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Driggs, Commissioner Myers, Chairman Dunlap, Councilmember Mitchells, to see the facilities activated, to kind of get a sense for what's happening in Charleston. And it was amazing in terms of the impact that that tournament has on that community. What's more amazing to me is the impact that BMAR Capital is having in the city of Charleston outside of the tournament, and the investment that they're making in people, the investment that they're making in children, and the investment they're making to building a better Charleston, a Charleston that's better tomorrow than it is today. I'm excited about having that type of energy in Charlotte. I think that's tremendous for our community. Now, the devil is always in the details, and I'll pause and turn over to my colleague. And I just want to, again, put in front of us 2 points. One, that we don't lose focus of the international stature of the tournament. Part of our job, the city's Economic Development Committee, is also to look at international business, international recruitment, international retention of those companies who are already here. This creates a unique opportunity to solidify that with major sponsors coming with the players, seeing Charlotte for 2 weeks, and saying, hey, this might be a good place for us to invest as well. And so it's a great opportunity for our corporate community for international relations, international business, and international travel. And then lastly, the acts, right? And that's the details, right? 1/3 from the public, and it's been noted again that they have already approached and communicated with the Office of the Governor, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, and those conversations are going well. Accelerated permitting, which is basically they want to have the first serve in 2026, which means we have to let them know something sooner than later. The infrastructure support, which is roads and utilities, are extremely important. And then one thing that we didn't talk about was working with the airport in terms of overflow parking. So there's a lot of work that has already been done in terms of kicking the tire and making sure that Beaumont Capital is comfortable with our community and that we are comfortable with them. I think that has been established, why we're here today. I just think it's an amazing opportunity that we should give full consideration to and respond accordingly to support their requests. That's Malcolm speaking, not the committee or the commissioners. That's Malcolm Graham. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I join the enthusiasm for the project. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for the city and county. One of the lenses that, we county commissioners have, of course, is the public access lens, which we have mentioned. But another aspect is the environmental impact. That's one of the things I like about the project is the impact that you guys, as far as the impervious surfaces and things like that. For example, the parking lots being, I think they're turf, or there's some sort of a turf that you can park on. Maybe you could speak to that just briefly.
Yeah, that's right. What we actually have in Cincinnati today are essentially, grass fields that are improved to ensure that we're not just creating a campus of pavement. And so those types of experiences, I think, will be important to what we do here. Charleston as a city is, as you might imagine, incredibly sensitive to stormwater. So as we built the stadium in Charleston, that was a high priority as well, and there were a lot of investments we made to ensure that we had a tremendous amount of impervious surface.
Yeah. So as far as the amount of land, if something's going to be put on this space, and so the idea of it being a project that has a lot of just a nod to the green aspects, I really do appreciate that aspect of the project. I have taken many trips down with the Lake Wylie Marine Commission in that area, and I know that our state doesn't have the best regulations as far as what's all going into the Catawba River. And so when Mr. Pierce spoke to how close it is to the river and how it kind of hasn't been touched, it kind of hit a little bit of a nerve for me. But I did want to say that because, we don't do these kinds of projects very often, at least I haven't had a whole lot of experience. I have had experience with Ballantyne Reimagined. And one of the things that Mr. Pierce said that really stuck out to me is how this is all owned, the River District is owned by one developer, by one owner. And so could you please speak a little bit more to how, is this a sale of this portion to the project, to the tennis project? How is Crescent, what role will Crescent play? I'm really interested when we talk about public investment, the return on investment for Crescent here, I imagine, will be huge. And so I would like to know, and please, just excuse my ignorance of knowing how these kinds of projects work, but does Crescent have a role in the investment of this project?
So just to, first of all, put it in perspective, the land that they would have this facility on is approximately 4% of the River District.
Oh, 4%?
Yes, to give
Okay.
you a sense of the size and scale, not just of their project, but the River District in general. So we are not investing in this project as an equity investor, but we will be heavily involved in partnership with BMOG. It's critical. I mean, one of the things, and if you've had the opportunity, or the people who have gone to Daniel Island, and this is why this has been a great relationship, because they get it, right? The tennis facility in Charleston is part of Daniel Island, and Daniel Island is part of the tennis facility. And we look at that same opportunity in the River District, where tennis will be enveloped within the River District, and it becomes one and the same. And so we'll be heavily involved, obviously. I would tell you from a commercial base, this will accelerate our ability to develop some of the commercial space, but not only accelerate, to elevate some of the commercial uses, because all of a sudden, if you have 750,000 people that come through the River District every year, you're going to have hotels that want to be there. You're going to have restaurants that want to be there. And that allows us to have local restaurateurs and opportunities for local residents in Charlotte, from a business perspective, that it's just going to take a lot longer if there's not a facility like this. I mean, it's just, as I said, this is a 10 to 15-year project for us. And so this becomes an accelerant for us, and also it becomes an accelerant from a tax revenue standpoint for the city and the county, especially on the commercial side, which has higher tax revenue. So hopefully that's answered your question. We're going to work hand in glove with them. We don't know tennis. And so we're not going to get too involved in that, other than making sure it fits within our vision of what the River District is. And I think, Ford, you can talk, I think that's what your intent is and what you like about the project.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I would echo all that sentiment in terms of what the partnership brings. And for us, the other side of it is having Crescent on site, developing the infrastructure alongside us, and having that level of expertise, which we understand the campus, but we have a lot around it we need to develop, really pairs for a great partnership.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. This is exciting. I did have a chance, as Mr. Graham mentioned, to go down to Daniel Island, and it is quite impressive. The sporting events, the way the trails interact, and what you're doing down there on that waterfront. One thing I think about from economic development standpoint is job creation. Can anybody, whether it's staff or Mr. Perry, kind of talk about the amount of jobs or the types of jobs that could be created from an investment like this?
So we haven't done a deep study. I can talk generally about it. Some of this is reflected in the economic impact study that Mr. Reagan, or Dr. Reagan completed, so that'll provide some additional detail. Listen, there's a seasonal evolution. We talked about a variety of different events that'll be there. Start with what the year-round campus will be in terms of operating a 50-acre campus and a tennis academy and the day-to-day. And then layering in not only the event, which is going to be thousands of employees, and then you sort of have to extend beyond that, which is all the support infrastructure that comes to support that event. We're not going to be directly employing them, but they'll be an important part of what we do. And then thinking about the concert series as well, and sort of the continuation of that plus festival. So I don't want to attempt to speak. We're happy to follow up and dig a little deeper, but I don't have those at my fingertips today.
Okay. So I think we can go back to the act slide, and we'll just make sure that everyone knows what the act is, and we go back to our respective bodies. County Manager, any comments? You don't have to. Thank you. Can you find it? Okay. Again, 1/3 total project cost with a cap provide resources and internal prioritization of accelerated permitting and requirements, and support necessary River District infrastructure development. 1/3 of the total cost of $400 million is the public acts. So I put that on the record. We hope that between the city, the county, and the state, that we could identify puzzle pieces that fit for everyone. If the board says yes, we understand the timeline that they're under to begin play in 2026. So if there's no other questions, other than a comment by me, I'm used to being the best tennis player in the room, Mr. Martin, and so we'll take this outside. So thank everyone for being here. Again, Tara Martin, Director of Tennis for BMARC Capital, and former top 5 player in the world. So I don't have a chance. I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Want to thank the county and Commissioner McDowell for their support. Meeting adjourned.